Another major loss for Donald Trump, as I'm sure you know, as numerous musical acts were quitting on Donald Trump after he unlawfully seized control of the Kennedy Center and then unlawfully renamed it the Trump Kennedy Center. Well, Trump took very vindictive action and started to sue a lot of these acts, including musicians who were providing free concerts, like free jazz shows to the community, and said, you better play your free jazz show. So a very well-known jazz musician, Chuck Red, who's been doing free concerts at the Kennedy Center since 2006, said, I ain't playing at something called the Trump Kennedy Center that you're like unlawfully taking over. So I'm not going to do that. And then, even though this guy was not making money on it, it was like a free concert, then the Trump regime sued them. Like the Kennedy Center sued Chuck Red and said, no, we're forcing you to play. And Chuck Red is like, well, I'm going to file an anti-slap motion to dismiss. You can't force me to do music for free. I don't have a contract with you either. I've just been playing since 2006 on a recurring basis. There's no contract that was signed. What the heck are you doing? So Trump tried to use the Kennedy Center. Just think about this place of joy, of music, of art, of cultural celebration now becomes a Trump litigant suing jazz musicians and others for basically performing for free. Not everyone performed for free, but Chuck Red happened to be doing free jazz performances since 2006, sued the guy. And so Chuck Red had to hire a lawyer. In June, Chuck Red won a motion to dismiss. And under what's called an anti-slap statute, the lawsuit that was filed against him by the Kennedy Center was dismissed. And now, over the past day or so, Chuck Red just won $250,000 in attorney's fees for prevailing in the lawsuit that was a improper lawsuit. So just the very idea that you have the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts versus Charles Red, a guy providing free jazz concerts since 2006, to force him to play. And the response was, you can't force me to sing. I don't have a contract with you. And even if I did have a contract with you, there's no consideration. I'm playing for free. If I don't want to play, I'm not going to play. What are you talking about? And so the judge granted the motion to dismiss, then said file a motion for attorney's fees. So not only is the Kennedy Center losing here, but now they owe Charles Red attorney's fees. It's just more losing over and over again. I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel. And so, Harry, we were covering a lot, especially this dates back to February of 2025. One of Trump's first acts of the authoritarian is take over the cultural center. I remember back in February, I had Ben Folds, the musician who led one of the main orchestra. Yeah. And so he was telling me why he quit right away. And then we saw numerous other musical acts and performers and Hamilton. There were so many different acts that were saying, we're not performing here. If you're going to turn this into like a political authoritarian fascist thing. But what we didn't really follow, which we've been following, but we should get the updates on, is then Trump used the Kennedy Center to start suing all of these people. And some of them were doing free concerts like this guy do. He's like, you're suing me for doing free, and just a perversion of the arts by Trump into this, not just, fascist thing, but then suing it for a guy who was giving back to the community. It's actually deeply sick. Who even thinks about doing a lawsuit like that? To see JFK versus Charles Red, but the right outcome happened, and yet it's another loss for Trump. You stand up to Trump, you win. You don't get bullied by this guy. You can't be forced to play your jazz music. It's sick.
Well, that's true. But first, I really like the way you frame this, Ben. It's, a place it really has been from its start, a leading national theater and place of art and movies. It's a jewel in the overall national landscape, not Republican, not Democrat. You've probably been to events there. They're really thoughtful. And he just came in and inevitably just pisses all over it and ruins the whole thing. Even if had he been successful, just everything Trump touches dies. And that's the sort of kind of first, I think, lesson here. Then after that, of course, the meritless suits start, and he has enemies, and he wants to harm his enemies, even though he doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. And I'm playing a free concert. I wrote a piece about Philip Glass's decision to pull out. I'm doing this thing about Lincoln and the Civil War. The Trump Kennedy Center that is not the kind of framing I want to give it. It really changes things, and that's the very reason he's doing it, to somehow partake. And especially, Kennedy, I think, has this sort of patina of sophistication and aristocracy, and exactly the kind of thing that Trump has never been able to penetrate. And it's just been so petty and tawdry and antithetical to what the place is there for. And plus, there would have been good reason had he even not put his name on things. You had testimony after testimony of how he friggin' ruined the place from the time. It's a little bit like Doge comes to the Kennedy Center. They get rid of certain programming, and they try to bring in others and just dumb down and trump down the whole thing. And now, so on this one, suing a guy who plays free jazz, as you say, and anti-slap. That's a really pretty tough medicine that the judge here doled out. You use it, and it gives a whole series of quick remedies, including defense fees, legal fees, when someone the court determines has brought an action basically just to retaliate for First Amendment speech, for protected speech. So he's making this point, and it really is a classic kind of, I don't want my performance to be linked with this president whose policies I oppose, etc. Here comes lawsuit, and it was really meant to humiliate, make grovel, cough up money, and the like. And so it was a fitting instance for it. And you're right. People who stand up to him, we've seen it again and again, they tend to prevail. And it's almost always the right move. But, this one, to me, I think of even outside the legal system, just American, it's a little bit like, say, the East Wing and the Ark, the way he wants to just, completely demolish the American spirit in architecture, art, and the like, and make it some kind of gaudy billboard and permanent artifact for Donald Trump. The notion from Washington that presidents are temporary occupants of the White House, and kings are the ones who stay there permanently. So it's part of that piece, and I find it especially despicable that he would do it while, just completely, this is a really important national institution bringing great artistic stuff, including for free, to the people. And here comes Donald Trump to just, completely ruin it. And who knows now, right, when it'll finally his name's been wiped off, although they still didn't want the people to see it. The whole damn thing is Trump at his sort of bad taste, third grade, pusillanimous worst, in addition to being, legally bankrupt.
Just seeing John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts against a jazz artist who performed for free to the community to bring joy to people, who didn't have a written contract either. And even if he did, it was a free concert where, under any normal situation, if you don't want to play the free concert, I'm not going to force you to play. What are you going to have? Specific fascist performances? Because specific performance for, you must play your jazz or else. So one of the things that I argued early on too for a lot of these artists. These artists believed they were playing at the JF Kennedy Center, not the Trump JFK Center.
Right.
And, you know, it's to me, it's like, even if you lend your musical talents to that perversion, you could be endorsing something that was eventually adjudicated to be illegal, you know, by being there. So even the people who had written contracts, to me, there was an easy contractual out, you know, after all of these things took place. But just shows you what terror. I mean, this is just like it's a small story, but it exemplifies it has really big ramifications. And for Chuck Red, it was a big story. It impacted his life. You know, he was in a litigation. He had to hire lawyers. He had to deal with all of this, you know, this crap from this, from this JFK, from this perversion of the JFK Center that I think still has it's still being covered up by the tarp.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I mean, look, that's it exactly. The small story, but so, you know, emblematic. And you just think of what it kind of demonstrates to the American people. You know, he's always at his most pitiful when he's trying to recruit musicians or artists to. Now, I think it's true that artists might lean left, but I don't think that's the only thing going on. They don't want to, they'll show up, but they don't want to be made to be little dancing monkeys in support of any presidential candidate. And that's what Trump tries to do. And that's why, you know, you see him, you know, scrounging for the likes of, you know, I forget the 2 or 3, fourth rate. I'll take back the fourth rate, but the 2 or 3 artists he's able to bring in, when these things happen. You know, it's because who the hell wants to work for a P.T. Barnum dishonest figure like this? It just demeans the artist as well as the event.
Everybody subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel. It's called Talking Feds. So just search on YouTube Talking Feds. Go watch one of the Harry videos and tell him that Ben said hello. You could even say WTF America. That's the name of the book with my brothers. But make sure you subscribe to Harry's YouTube channel. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, Ben.
Hey, if you want the full story, how democracy got here and how we take it back, pre-order our new book, WTF America, today. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Let's do this.